Good evening. I'm Alan Joins, Mayor of the City of Winston-Salem. It's my honor to call to order this November 15th meeting of the Winston-Salem City Council. Pursuant to the policies and procedures adopted by this City Council relative to virtual meetings, I've determined that it's not feasible for the City Council and I to meet together physically tonight. And due to the pandemic, all council members are participating virtually. Council members will vote by roll call vote. A council member will be recognized, raise their hand, and state their vote. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Larson.
Present.
Councilmember Clark. Councilmember Mundy.
Present.
Councilmember Scipio.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Present.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Here.
Councilmember Burke.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Clark did ask me to let you know that he is out of town on a business trip and regrets he couldn't be here tonight. Would you please join the City Council and me in a moment of silence? Thank you very much. Tonight's agenda of the City Council is comprised of two parts, the general agenda and the consent agenda. As always, the practice of the City Council to consider the consent agenda first. Items on this agenda have been unanimously recommended by a committee of the Council or are being submitted in accordance with established city procedure. There'll be no discussion of the items on this agenda unless a council member so requests, in which event the item would be removed from the consent agenda and considered individually. Items not removed from the consent agenda will be enacted with one motion. We're televising this meeting live on TV 13, and it will be replayed tomorrow at 9 a.m. and again Wednesday at 9 p.m. Of course, copies of our agenda as well as videos of previous meetings are always available online at the city's website, and just click on the Watch Meetings Online option. Council members, are there any items you wish to remove from the consent agenda?
C26.
All right. Is there a motion on the ballot?
Mr. Mayor, C4, please.
Sure. Okay.
I move for approval of the balance of the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. We'll go to the roll call. Yes votes approve the balance of the consent agenda. Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy?
Aye.
Councilmember Scipio?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Thank you. The consent agenda is approved. Item C4.
Item C4, consideration of items relating to the Recovery Grants Program for small businesses and nonprofits, recommended by Finance Committee.
Councilmember Larson?
Yes, I think because of the interest on the part of the public as far as the distribution of this money, and since this will be the first sort of distribution of $3 million from that $51 million that's been allocated, I think the public is very interested in exactly how we're going to do that. So if we could have an explanation of the people that will be, groups that will be qualified, how the money will be distributed, and what the qualifications will be for that distribution would be useful for the public to know.
Mr. Rao, could you give us a brief summary of this item?
Good evening, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tempore Adams, members of the City Council. Actually, I'm going to recognize Scott Tesh, who's our budget and performance management director, to give you an overview of this item since he worked very closely with it.
All right, very good. Mr. Tesh.
Thank you, Ben, and good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the City Council. Agenda item C4 is comprised of several components, the largest of which is our Recovery Grants Program. The appropriation there is for $3 million to be split into three categories of $1 million each for recovery grants to small businesses, small social service nonprofits, and travel, hospitality, and tourism nonprofits. We are requesting authorization to use the United Way of Forsyth County as a program administrator there. In terms of the individual specifics for those programs, they are in the agenda materials. Small businesses has been defined as those that are inside city limits, must not be chain businesses, must have fewer than 25 full-time employees, and had to be in business before the onset of the pandemic. For the nonprofits to qualify as a small business, they needed to be less than $1 million total budget, not including pass-through funding from other organizations. And these monies are specifically for small businesses and small nonprofits to be paid for where they have arrears in rent, mortgage, or utility payments, what we've kind of coined ERAP for small businesses and nonprofits. The purpose here to keep those small businesses and nonprofits afloat who might otherwise go under were it not for the funding we're making available in these programs. We'd be more than happy to answer any specific questions on the programs, but that's an overall highlight of the program.
Mr. Tesh, would you elaborate on the qualified census tract requirements?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. So they're a little different for businesses and nonprofits. The idea for businesses is that we would do a pooled lottery approach, and essentially 25 grants would be made available first only to small businesses in qualified census tracts. And then we would do a second lottery. And under that second lottery, anyone in a QCT who was not given funding in the first round would be put back in, but we would have a second lottery in QC with those from QCTs as well as those from other census tracts where median income was under $50,000.
Can you tell me what the median income is on a QCT tract?
I could provide that for you later. I'm not sure I could give you the average across the QCTs right now, but I can get
the question, is there a significant difference between the QCT tract and the $50,000 requirement that's with second round?
In some areas, I believe the answer is yes. I would have to go back to the original map, but I believe there's at least one of the QCTs where that value was under $30,000. I could get you the information on all of those census tracts, but I don't know it off the top of my head that well.
I believe I'm meeting with the city manager tomorrow morning, so maybe we could discuss that tomorrow. But clearly, we're going to vote on tonight some parameters for the first $3 million, which is basically for arts group is less than 2% of the overall budget. And that my concern is in part the availability of this funding, particularly for some citywide arts organizations that may not be falling within the QCT track, or may not be within the $50,000 track either. And this is a concern. And I guess the question would be to the city manager, having missed the August meeting myself, as to whether or not there's going to be opportunities to evaluate this with the additional money that's going to be available from the 51 million that's been allocated to the city, since we're only allocating $3 million tonight.
Mr. Garrity.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. Councilmember Larson, yes, in fact, I think we set up a separate meeting to go over specifically view some of the ARPA issues. The larger nonprofits and the larger arts nonprofits will be eligible in this second phase that we showed council the criteria for last month. They'll be coming back for approval by the first of the year. So some of the larger groups will be eligible to apply through that process.
Okay. So this is the first shot across the bow of allocating the money to the smaller organizations, and particularly focused on census tracts where the need is most compelling, theoretically.
Yes, and Councilmember, these were all designed to be similar to the way we did ERAP, so for citizens. So these are recovery grants, so they're designed for small organizations, small businesses, small nonprofits for specific recovery from the COVID. So they're a little different than the larger kind of grants. It'll be designed more for transformational and equity and poverty and the larger things that we're trying to do.
Right. But still, one of the major criteria when this was first issued was travel and tourism. And I hope we don't lose track of that. Right.
Mr. Larkin, if you're ready, would you like to make a motion?
Move approval.
For a second.
Second.
Thank you. Is any other discussion on this item? Not, go to roll call. Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy.
Aye.
Councilmember Scipio,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Yes.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Item C26.
Item C26, resolution amending Article 1, Conditions of Employment, Section 20, Political Activity of the City of Winston-Salem Personnel Resolution. Recommended by Community Development, Housing, and General Government Committee.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams, you asked for this one.
Yes, Mayor, I would like our city attorney just to hit the highlights of this new resolution. Of course, it made the paper and other things, but if we could go, an opportunity is here that we can go ahead and review it again publicly. Thank you.
Attorney Carmen, could you summarize the proposed change here?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Certainly, I'll be happy to do so. The resolution amendment that you have before you does basically two things. It removes the requirement from the personnel resolution that a person be placed on unpaid leave to be a candidate for political or partisan elected office. It puts in place a provision that says if an employee who is appointed or elected as mayor or city council member basically will automatically resign his or her position or forfeit the city position upon installation into office as mayor or a council member. And that's the amendment in a nutshell. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any other questions, Carmen? Mayor Pro Tem, if you're ready for a motion, do you have additional questions?
I just have a comment, Mayor, that I love it when the city or any city or government agency can be more diverse, inclusive, and intentional about it. Again, we have a growing population of young people all over the country, but they didn't grow up with the employment opportunities, the money that most of us made when we were young. And so they can't just give up their job or leave it to pursue an opportunity to run for public office. Hopefully this will assist and help anyone that wants to do that, knowing that, as the city attorney said, if you're running for anything that's mayor or city council, you will have to resign upon installation. But if you're not, if you're running for Congress, if you're running for county, school board, whatever, you have an opportunity. But the main point is you still have to do your job if you can do it on both sides. You got to do the job 200%. But it will be managed by the staff and the supervisors and managers to ensure that there is no preference given to anyone at any time. And with that, I move for approval of item C26.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Right, thank you. We'll go to the roll call. Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy.
Aye.
Councilmember Scipio.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Yes.
Thank you. That is unanimous. We'll now go back to the general agenda, which is comprised of the following. There's an item related to the construction contracts for Merschel Park. There are 3 items related to boards and commissions, as well as the public comment period. The public comment period is a time set aside for citizens to voice their opinions on matters that are germane to city government. When the virtual comment period is called, each speaker will be given 3 minutes, and the comment period will be limited to 30 minutes total. Ms. Keeney, would you read the first item, please?
Item G1, consideration of items regarding the assignment of construction-related contracts for Merschel Park and the termination of the downtown development agreement. Recommended by Finance Committee with 3 in favor and 1 abstaining.
Thank you. Councilmembers, I'll go ask Aaron King just to give us a brief summary of this so that the public can know what we're talking about relative to the park. Mr. King?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Joins, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and council members. I'll just give a brief summary as the mayor requested. So In January 2019, City Council entered into an agreement with Pepper Property Association for the construction of Merschel Park under the Downtown Development Statute. That agreement set forth a time period of 24 months to complete Merschel Park, and it's set forth the terms of the city's participation, which the total amount was $4.6 million, of which $700,000 was TIF financing. Fast forward through the pandemic, which did slow down things with related to Merschel Park, and we get to August of 21 when representatives of Pepper Property Association bid out the work for Merschel Park. They received 3 bids from local companies, with Frank L. Bloom Construction being the lowest at $4.219 million, almost $500,000 lower than the second bidder in that. Subsequent to that, some work was done in terms of value engineering to try to get the cost of the park down and reduce the gap between the cost of the park and the remaining city funds, which is about $2.69 million. So that value engineering resulted in lowering the price of the park from $4.219 to $3.669 million. Add another $150,000 for contingency and another $150,000 for soft costs for construction oversight with Stimel and Associates, and that brings your total cost for the park to $3.969 million. Subtract out a gap, subtract out $300,000, which has been pledged by the Millennium Fund. And basically that leaves your total gap that's left of $979,089. So as we know, the 24 months as originally set forth in that January 2019 agreement have expired. And so the city has deemed the best course of action is to move forward and assign those construction contracts to Merschel Park and with Bloom and Stimel to the city, and to move forward with construction of Merschel Park. So what you've got here before you tonight is an item that authorizes the assignment of those construction-related contracts for Merschel Park and also seeks to terminate the downtown development agreement. In addition to that, you've got an ordinance amending the project budget ordinance that reappropriates the monies to cover that gap of $979,000. So I know at Finance Committee, when we discussed this item, there were several questions of where that money was coming from and what other pots of money were out there. And I know our budget director, Scott Tesh, provided some additional information to council members leading up to this meeting. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Tesh if he'd like to say a few words about the information that he provided to council associated with this item.
Mr. Tesh.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Aaron. Good evening again, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the City Council. In addition to the PBO, which appropriates the funds from economic development and the Millennium Fund for the Merschel Park project, there is a new item in the agenda system, specifically an unencumbered balances report. This report is one of a few different reports that have been provided to the City Council recently with different focal points. This one specifically looking again at unencumbered balances. Unencumbered in this does not mean that the balance has not been appropriated for a specific purpose, but rather that the full project costs haven't been obligated via a purchase order in our finance system. So in many cases, the projects that you see in this report are in various stages of design and construction for specific sites. This report is divided into 3 sections, and I'll go into what each one of those sections are. I will note there's a little bit of subjectivity in how they were grouped, and professional judgment was used in assigning them to these categories. The table that you see on the first page, Table 1, represents projects where the mayor and city council obligated funds to certain program areas under the premise that future appropriations would be made for specific sites or projects. So as an example, looking at the first project in the table, the economic development sites and infrastructure project was a pot of funding set aside for future economic development needs, specifically for business attraction and retention. If you go to the second table includes projects with funding to a more specific project type and where staff is designing sites and projects with the funds. Again, as an example from this list, there are $6.1 million appropriated for concrete street base rehabilitation projects. Staff is using the remaining funding in that project for design and rehab of specific streets. The third table, which is much larger and is several pages long, includes appropriations for specific projects or sites. Using the first project in that table as an example, we show a budgeted amount that is allocated for the city share of replacing the public safety radio communications system. The report does not indicate, particularly in tables 2 and 3, where balances can be moved without canceling, delaying, or rescoping projects. Rather, the report was intended to answer the question, where do unencumbered balances exist should conversations need to take place regarding reprioritization. Additional research can be done on any project specifics as requested. More than happy to take any questions, although some of those project specifics may involve more research or discussions with project managers.
Thank you, Mr. Tash. Are there any questions for Mr. Tash or Mr. King? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Tesh and Mr. King, for putting these reports together. Great job. One more thing that I'd like to see over the next week or so, I'd like to see, and I don't know, Mr. King, whether that'd be coming from you or that's a group staff effort, Mr. Garrity. I'd like to see the actual fund balances of, let's say, the home funds, CBDG, and those type governmental pots of money that we have that may be unencumbered, not used, or not there anymore. And I'd like to see that. When I got on the council in 2009, I requested that because I didn't understand at the time all these different buckets of money. So I think it would be great if we could do that again for the council so they can see that you may have some money here in the capital fund bucket, but there may be some money somewhere else in some other fund balances or other grant balance accounts. Thank you.
Councilmember Scipio, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question for Mr. Tesh on table 2. The East End property acquisition of $3 million. It says that it's a remaining budget, but we actually have designated that fund, those monies to Simon Green Atkins under contract. So this table doesn't reflect it. The money hasn't been spent, but it has been designated. So just for something specific. So I think that's the kind of thing we might want to sort of clear that up.
Yep.
Councilmember Scipio, I will say thank you. We'll look into that further. It was not specifically encumbered in the system, but if there's a contract pending, that is not something we would have caught in this report.
Yeah, I will also, other questions, I'll get back to you definitely on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Scipio.
Thank you.
Councilmember Larson, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. First of all, thank you for pulling this together. It's incredibly interesting to see how much the city's actually doing on a variety of projects throughout the city and throughout the different wards. Can we anticipate seeing this updated quarterly or ever so often that we can monitor these projects? And I'd be curious to know, particularly on category 3, the third issue about the totals, dealing with the total amount that had been budgeted, total amount spent, and the remaining budgets, and how we're sort of as an index of the completed projects would be a good way to tell, how we're progressing on all of this. Is that a reasonable request to see it every quarter, say?
Councilmember Larson, I think it's a reasonable request for us to present this type of information to you on a quarterly basis. The format may change with the new budget and performance management department. I will tell you that capital project tracking and monitoring is one of the top priorities in terms of performance management. So I think we need to find the appropriate format to manage that internally and to report it to City Council and to the public. But absolutely going forward, we can find some way to summarize this information for performance management purposes.
It's a powerful inventory and a heck of a statement as to how much we're doing in the city with all these projects. So thank you for pulling that together.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I want to add my thanks to Mr. Tash, you and your staff, for I know you pulled this together very quickly, a lot of information there, and a great piece of work. I certainly am personally grateful for that. This did come out of finance with a positive recommendation. Mayor Pro Tem Adams, you abstained. I don't know if you'd like for Councilmember McIntosh to make a motion, or if I'm certainly happy to recognize you if you'd like to.
I will let Councilmember McIntosh. He's been working on this since probably got on the council. And
for the dawn of time.
I'll be glad to second it.
Okay, go ahead, Councilmember McIntosh.
Thank you very much. I move approval of item G1.
Second.
And Mayor Pro Tem seconds. Any further discussion? Now we'll go to the roll call. Councilmember Larson.
Absolutely, yes.
Councilmember Mundy.
Aye.
Councilmember Scipio.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Yes.
Thank you. That is unanimous, and congratulations, Mayor Councilmember McIntosh. As Mayor Pro Tem did say, you have been working on this a long time, so be glad to get that big mound of dirt moving up there.
Citizens are going to be happy.
Item G2, please.
Item G2, Mayor Joines' recommendation for appointment to the Public Art Commission, Lisa Strout, term expiring December 2023.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve?
Thank you. Motion and second. Any discussion? All right, roll call. Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy,
Aye.
Councilmember Scipio,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Yes.
Thank you. Item G3.
Item G3, Mayor Joines' recommendation for appointment to the Recreation and Parks Commission, Mashika Jefferson, term expiring May 2024.
Is there a motion?
Move approval, John.
Is there a second?
Second, Mundy.
Thank you, Mr. Mundy. Any further discussion? To the roll call, Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy,
Aye.
Councilmember Scipio,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Yes.
Thank you. Item G4.
Item G4, Mayor Joines' recommendation for appointment to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, Brad Klosterman, term expiring October 2024.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Mundy. Any discussion? Roll call. Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy,
Aye.
Councilmember Scipio,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntosh,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to item G5.
Item G5, public comment period.
Thank you. As I stated earlier, this is a time once per month that the City Council invites individuals to speak to the council and myself on matters that are germane to city government. We ask that you would limit your comments to 3 minutes, and please state your name and address for the record when you're called. Ms. Keeney, would you call the first person?
Gary McCoy, please unmute yourself. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Gary McCoy. I live at 474 Petrie. I've spoken to City Council both in August and September. I was out of town in October.
Mr. McCoy, could you get a little closer to your microphone? We're having a little trouble hearing you.
Okay, is this better?
Not much, McCoy.
How about this?
A little bit.
Okay, I'll try to speak loud. So my subject matter is our proposed Petrie Road sidewalk project. And you'll remember maybe that the last time I spoke, I asked Mayor Joines to put forth a resolution to the city council members to vote on that would favor we Petrie Road residents impacted by this unpopular grass strip sidewalk. And, we favor the sidewalk, but we question the need for the grass strip. I did not listen to the whole meeting on my phone, and I want to know if that resolution was put forth, and if not, why not? And perhaps Mayor Joines will introduce that resolution after I finish speaking tonight. Secondly, I asked City to document the number of accidents that have occurred on our current Petrie Road sidewalk, where a vehicle has jumped the curb and struck a walker. Of course, at the root of this requested documentation is our belief that our current sidewalk that we have that goes up to the high school, a regular sidewalk I call it, without a strip is plenty safe. A grass strip is unnecessary and unwanted by we residents. We've not heard from the city about this request. We assume it went unheeded, but maybe I can get some input after I finish talking tonight or this week, whatever. But Finally, and most importantly, I wrote City Manager Lee Garrity and asked him to explain the gross discrepancies in monetary payouts by the city to my property, the property to my east, and the property to my west. My neighbor to the east has about 100 feet of frontage, has been offered about $6,800. My property has about 250 feet of frontage, and I've been offered $3,950. The property to my west has about 100 foot of frontage and has only been offered $750. And I'd like to know why, there's this great gross discrepancy. So maybe Mr. Garrity can write me a little note and explain that, but I haven't heard from him. You know that this proposed project does not seem to be passing the smell test from day one, but I don't know. Maybe we'll get some satisfaction yet. I'd like for the city to listen to our opposition and concerns. We have these gross discrepancies.
Mr. McCoy, your time is up. Thank you very much. And I'm sure the manager will respond to the question about the values there. I'm sure there's a reason behind that, but we'll certainly be happy to follow up. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Joanne Allen.
Joanne Allen, President of Action for Now Incorporated, P.O. Box 284, 27102. Good evening. Just so everyone knows, we haven't gone anywhere. Our purpose is to continue to share the truth and eventually bring about indictments without the help of the Forsyth County District Attorney. As an original native and resident of Winston-Salem, this is our city, and we plan to take it back. For decades, our residents have experienced the betrayal of elected officials who only represent the people by way of their personal agendas. Most have become wealthy at the expense of hardworking individuals whose family members help put the name of Winston-Salem on the world's map. This is no longer a city of integrity, but a city of cover-ups, a city of intimidation by way of bullying and cowardice. Over the past year and a half, we have lost many people as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as the public is distracted, we continue to experience gentrification, higher taxes, bad roads, and more, while our tax dollars are still going to the mayor friends and their projects. All of this as our historical Black communities are being raped of their historical value and the people who need the help the most. I do want to touch on one quick subject. Under the Recovery Grant Program's eligibility, understand that the purpose is to provide economic support to small businesses and nonprofits that show that, number one, they are in danger of ceasing operations, or in other words, about to have their business closed. Number two, the business or the nonprofit has to be in arrears for rent, mortgage, and or utility payments, along with other stipulations that must be met. We will be paying close attention to all entities receiving these funds, going back to the first disbursement of the funds earlier this year. And please don't forget to pick up your book, The $5 Million Conspiracy by Curtis Dixon. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else signed up to be heard? All right, very good. I will then close the public comment period. And council members, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
If there's anyone opposed to adjourning, please say no. Seeing no one, we are unanimous to adjourn, and we are adjourned. Thank you.